And we're back. Welcome to another direction of the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Vanessa Hoskins, an actual human being.
And I'm Luis Loza.
And today we have a special guest, one that I'm always happy to see on this show, somebody I'm excited to talk to every chance I get, the man who impresses me at GMing as if it were a contact sport, Thurston Hillman. Welcome,
Snorlax.
Thursty, to KD.
Oh my gosh, Thursty.
Hi, everybody. Hi. It's good to be back, everybody. How's it going? Hi, I'm Thurston Hillman. I am in this role, some person on the internet.
Yeah, and Thursty, you're on the show so much that we just love you. But lately, you've been doing some very interesting, fun things. You've been GMing not Pathfinder for a very long time.
Yes,
in front of an audience.
Yeah, I have. I've been GMing this secret game that nobody knows about called Bunnies and Burrows, and it's really intense. And oh, wait, you're talking about something else. That's a real game, by the way. Look it up. Pretty cool. Okay, you're probably talking about this thing that I am involved with called War Hams. Is that okay? Yes. Haha's funnies aside, for those of you listening, hi, my name is Thurston Hillman. I'm actually a developer at Paizo. You may remember me from such past episodes as Pathfinder Society lead developer, or Starfinder Society lead developer, or I don't know, involved with some books here and there. So in the way back when machine, you remember when conventions were in person? Okay, let's go back to that time, to a Gen Con in that distant time. I was in the org playroom, the Sagamore Ballroom, this large, lovely place. And we had all these games and all these like org play stuff going on. And I was hidden in the farthest hidden corner of the HQ desk because Games Workshop was announcing their new product releases at Gen Con. So of course I had to be on the laptop seeing where my Paizo money would go to Games Workshop, which is the flow of my money normally.
Right.
And
naturally.
Yeah.
It turns out that Thirsty's money is the only money in the entire RPG industry, just moving between.
It's cyclical. It's cyclical. We'll get to the point where it comes back to me too. It's really good. So there I am hiding in this corner, and this towering man comes behind me, this Viking of an individual, this like 6 foot tall shadow. Hey, I hear you like war hams. And I turn, and that's how I met Peyton Smith, who was our like social media person who had just been hired like 2 months prior, who I'd never met, who was there, I believe, working with you at that particular Gen Con.
I was about dead, actually. We were exhausted.
And so Peyton like and I bonded because we were both Warhammer fans, and he was involved with this show called If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device. It's a very popular like comedic fan animation for Warhammer 40,000, and so him and I got along really well. I ended up, when I visited Paizo's office several months down the line, but actually just under a year later, I stopped by for my routine visit that I do, and we actually played Warhammer in the boardroom. So anytime you see that boardroom, there's just Peyton and I playing Warhammer there. That was fun. Anywho, so he wanted to do an RPG based off of If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device, and just kind of set in that universe. And Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device, TTS as we call it, I'll keep it short, was done by this lovely man by the name of Alpha Busa, who just started up his own company, which I believe their actual name is Ogre Popenang, so very, very Swedish, very lovely man. And so we did this RPG show called War Hams, which was based off of that. We brought in some voice actors and writers from TTS, and then like everyone was either like a voice actor from it or a writer, or mostly voice actors and writers. And then there was me, who was just like, I'm a Warhammer nerd who likes to GM things, and they needed someone who could GM things. So we played this game called Wrath and Glory. I swear there's a point to this chat. Don't worry, we're coming back to Pathfinder. I know it's a Pathfinder show. And so we did this game called Wrath and Glory, which, ironically enough, coming full circle now, was an RPG that I had just started freelancing for, which that's the circle of life. My money goes from Paizo to Games Workshop, and then a Games Workshop subsidiary pays me to freelance for, and it's this weird, awful thing. Also, speaking of which, Wrath and Glory Church of Steel just came out today. It's a fancy new book in Wrath and Glory about vehicles. I wrote for it. There's my shameless plug. Oh, look, Param's like, I can't control this Canadian. He does what he wants.
Go for it.
And so, yeah, so I ended up GMing that. We went for 30 some odd episodes, a special players all played orcs episode. It was this like absolutely wonderful ride. Sadly, closer to the end of that, there was a great disturbance in the force with regards to how Games Workshop was handling fan content, specifically not really supporting fan content, and there's some bad mojo happened there. So we made the decision to move away from Warhammer, and so that led to the question of, well, what are we going to do? And oh gosh, and we wrapped up our shows. Things were just like really doing well, though. We had like a really strong audience, and they wanted us to keep doing stuff, and we're like, okay, what are we gonna do? And Peyton and I, you may also know him as Zoren the Bear, we were sitting down in meetings deciding, like, what are we gonna do? What kind of show could we go to? Now, like, Peyton and I are obviously Paizo stands because we both work for it, but also like second edition has become a game him and I both love. Like, he really adored second edition. He got into it, like really loved the gameplay, loved like how it streamed, how it played. So for him, it was a game he wanted to do. For me, I'd been running my home Druma campaign for the better part of a year. At that point, I was like all in on second edition, just having like gone through the GM cycle. You know, despite working at the company, there's still like a level of, hey, as a GM, I need to run this so I can suss everything out myself, because there's only so much you can take in from books. And so yeah, we both decided, okay, let's second edition. We're going to do a bunch of playtest sessions. We did it. And then we came up with this idea for this like campaign setting we were going to do called Rotgrind. Specifically the World of Tyne, which is our setting. And then we were going to do Rotgrind, the campaign. And that is sort of brought us to last Saturday when our first episode aired. Hey. And we went with a Dark Souls inspired Pathfinder second edition game, which has been the better part of my life for the past, mine and my partner's life for the past like 4 to 5 months.
Wow.
So I'm going to be the idiot here really quick and say, can you tell me what aspects of Dark Souls or how that plays into Rotgrind? Because I've only played Dark Souls one time for about 30 minutes and couldn't get out of the starting room, and I just gave up. So I know very little about it.
I see you turned left and went the route of the skeletons. That's the porch. Right? No. So Dark Souls.
It was a game where there was like shadow dogs. I walked out of the main little room and there was a little courtyard, and there was like, I got jumped by 5 shadow dogs, and I tried to fight them about 10 times and couldn't even hurt any of them, and finally just like, and then spent another 20 minutes running around looking for a way around them, couldn't find one, and gave up.
I'm gonna put my nerd cred out here. So well, actually, you played Dark Souls 2 as your starting game. Those dogs are meant to scare you away. I'm actually doing a stream of that over on my Twitch channel.
They did. Now. They scared me away from the entire game.
The entire series.
Yeah.
So to answer your question without rambling about Dark Souls, which is another thing I could do, we originally it was very much a like visual element sort of thing. We were trying to like we want to do our own campaign setting. Everybody wants to do their own campaign setting. What makes it unique? What's gonna like bring people in? And we talked about a lot of things like, oh, we want to do airships, and we had a big meeting, and people were like, oh, let's do the Avatar thing with like a big city like Legend of Korra. Let's have guns because Guts and Gears is cool. Let's have like, and it was just this grab bag, and like we got all these cool ideas, but then it was also like how do we visually make this distinct? How do we like have some cornerstones that people will know what we're trying to do? And I'm a huge Dark Souls fan. I am like, I've platinumed all of those games. I like forever stand that series too. I didn't mention Dark Souls at all because that's like one of those things, if I don't like projecting my own like personal loves onto other projects and so forth, like, okay. But then Peyton's like, well, why don't we do something like Elden Ring, Dark Souls? And I'm like, yes, let us, please. And so we, to sort of like get what the aesthetic was, we went with something that had like a very rotten feel, thus the idea like Rotgrind, which, you like kind of like cyberpunk. There's like Rotgrind. Oddly enough, Rotgrind was just like the project title I had for it, and Luis will have my back on this. Sometimes the name that you come up with as like this is the placeholder name until I can think of something better. Sometimes something better never comes, and you just end up with that.
Or it's not even that nothing better comes. It's just like, I'm kind of attached to it. Everyone knows it by this name now. Let's stick
like,
with it.
if it's a good name, if it's marketable, if it makes you think of the product you just created, you're like, I guess that's what we'll just call it.
That's what happened with Ire of the Storm. Because I named it as a joke name, and eventually Crystal was like, yeah, we're just keeping it like this. I'm like, okay. But yeah, so it's like heavily inspired from that, from a visual perspective too. We have a really awesome logo that we did up for it that like kind of encompasses some of that, those sorts of styles, and we've got like the rising city, but there's this like blackness, and so the eponymous rot of the there it is. Ooh, look at that fancy. World in Decay. Yeah, that is the logo for our campaign, which is done by my amazing partner Jamie Eastfeld, to tell stories. That was
The production values are just off the chart for everything you've been doing with the campaign setting and with the show itself.
Oh, that's like all my partner, like and our amazing host of artists. To be fair, it's funny because like despite living with a person and like us being in the same household for I think upwards of like 6 years now, like we've never done like a joint like, oh, let's do an RPG product together. And so Jamie had never even touched an RPG product, so this was like for their first attempt, just going through and making it based on like, here, let me show you a few other things, and so yeah, like very just blown away with all of the quality. You can see lots of the artwork. We also make sure to credit all of our artists in all of our pieces as much as we can, because that's important. Credit your peoples, yo. So yeah, you can get like a sense even from the artwork. You see sort of this sort of decayed look. We have the rot, which is sort of this malaise / affliction that has overtaken the world of Tyne and appeared about 300 years ago. So the kind of like sell for our setting is it's like a world that is dying, and it has been dying, not a fast death, not like the war to end all wars or Ragnarok's on the horizon. No, it's like the slow death that has been going on for the last 300 years. And so it is all channeled by this thing called the rot, which to talk about it a bit more and to answer your question, Vanessa, as far as like what makes it different. Well, we also have some mechanics. So the document you're seeing up there on the screen and that Parmesan that you can go find on our Patreon, patreon.com/narrative declaration. Shameless plug. We have our free campaign primer up there that talks to you all about the world and like gives you sort of the primer on like the gods, the nations, the continents, everything like that. So we've also got rules content that is coming out, and that's where like our Patreon is our primary vector for that. So one of the ones that just came out was like a document that talks about the rot and brings it into a mechanical focus. So there's actual mechanics we're introducing from this stuff. So have you wanted to run a campaign where you as the DM can like TPK your party and then bring him back and do it again? Well, we've got the ability for you to do that. We actually have rules for essentially a respawn mechanic, which every time the players die and they can respawn at essentially a GM determined respawn point, they gain what's called the rotten condition. And the rotten condition is effectively a permanent wounded condition that you can't get rid of except in very, very specific circumstances. So it creates this neat thing of like the players can die and come back, but every time they come back, they're actually closer and closer to death. So like, oh, have we gotten rotten 2? Well, shit, if I like go down, I'm suddenly dying 3 already. Like it creates a tension, but also gives them like free lives. So like I can throw horrible monstrosities at them that will kill them, or you can as the GM.
And this is a good time to bring in Costrillo. I'm not sure who that might be in chat.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure. No,
some
I don't
nerd.
know.
Yeah.
Some
The book
nerd.
raises a good question. What is Rotgrind? A podcast? A sandwich? Can I eat it?
Oh, can you eat it? All right. So Rotgrind at its core is the campaign that we are currently doing for our stream. So it is a streamed campaign that takes place over on twitch.tv/Zoren the Bear. But then will also be posted up on YouTube. Currently it's going on Zoren the Bear's channel, but we also have the Narrative Declaration channel on YouTube that you can go find, and we'll also have all of our old Warhammer stuff. So it at its core is a show. But with that, we're taking that sort of campaign umbrella and using it to put out all of this content as well. So like that logo you saw, like the Rotgrind: A World in Decay, that's sort of the logo that we're putting out for our primer, any of the documents we're putting out through our Patreon. And eventually our plan is through Drive-Thru RPG to get all this stuff out there.
I need to, from your channel, Thursty, I need to call out from Parse the Potatoes. Technically, if you put it in a sandwich, it's a rot grinder.
Touche. Yeah. Parse is good people. I like you, Parse. Yeah, so that's kind of the high level. Really, it's just a show of a bunch of chuckleheads playing games together. And I should say that the show itself is myself and our 5 players. So myself, Erndil, Speaker D, Hulky Crow, Odoroshi Rider, and our hosts Zoren the Bear, Peyton Smith, as many of you also know him as.
Mm-hmm.
And then I GM and they yell at me and say I don't let them do anything. Yeah, good job on not cursing, because we call them a different type of chuckle thing, but this is a family-friendly show. I should also mark that like our show is not like super like you could probably get away with it. Like we've got the PG-13, though sometimes we maybe drop more than one F-bomb, but like if you know, like it's not like we're going into utterly terrible things, except maybe some of the monsters. But like nothing worse than Pathfinder would be in a session. Yeah,
I mean, you're doing pretty well on this stream. You've only sworn once live on the air, so you know.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the influences, one of the things I'm curious about is when you were doing Warhams, the Warhammer universes, both in Warhams and Warham's Fantasy, that's a very grim setting. That's very grim dark. And
Yes.
Pathfinder by default isn't. Is that another reason you all decided to go with this much more dark setting than the default fantasy world?
Kind of. And I think it's because of how our show is at its core. We're a humorous show. We're a bunch of people sitting around a table having a fun time. We want people to laugh with us, enjoy like good storytelling, I hope. But also like, haha, we make funny jokes about funny things and ha ha ha. And so it's easier to do that in a weird way when the world is really dark, because if the world itself is portrayed as a super serious, grim, dark thing, but then like the players like just like are absolute meme lords towards it, then like there's this fun balance. And I think it's a fun thing a lot of people like watching is like DM presents something super serial like and then the players are just like, oh well, that's dumb, or like, oh no, it's a bear that has its chest exposed open and we can see its organs, and the exposed chest has like lines of teeth. This is a monster in our first session, spoilers. And the players like, all right, I jump at it and I spell strike, crack a toe, like like it's stupid fun stuff like that. Yeah.
So I noticed in the primer that it mentions that the gods of the setting kind of just like have abandoned it for the most part.
Yes.
But occasionally do provide power and sponsorship to specific people and stuff. And that's how the whole, coming back from death thing can happen. Is the intent maybe with the campaign overall to have like, hey, these heroes are going to be the light that maybe shines the world a little bit, cleans it up a bit?
Now, I need to like go into some lore about our characters. First of all, like our party alchemist is like probably 80% Ned Kelly. And if you're not familiar with Ned Kelly, you should go online and read about Ned Kelly. I would say like chaotic good. Some people may call them terrorists. Some people may call them freedom fighters. So they're like, we have a like kind of like our hearts are in the right places, but also they're all a bit messed up and dark in their own ways. So, well, so I'm not going to go excitedly and say like they're absolutely the warriors of light. No, a lot of them are also kind of jerks too. And so, like, if and when they do become sponsored, who knows? That might be something we see like an evolution on, or something we explore, and it's definitely something we want to explore in the show. But I think that like the players themselves are all like morally malleable, and their characters are about the same. So yeah, I only got like in trouble once for like trying to make a PC feel bad for murdering like the law enforcement that is literally called the Tyrants Guild. So, you know,
yes.
It's that kind of game.
Yeah. I remember the Tyrants Guild, and I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing.
A little bit.
When Tannhauser showed up, I kind of figured what we were getting in for.
Oh yeah. And Speaker D does a fantastic job. And for those of you listening who are like, what is all of this? Our characters are an eclectic band. We have an alchemist who is constantly at odds with the law and blowing things up. We have
and wears a bucket on his head.
Wears a bucket on his head. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, again, look up Ned Kelly and his famous shootout and anti like gun armor he wore. By the way, it didn't last long. They realized that his feet and arms weren't actually protected, so they just shot there. It's a very interesting piece of Australian history. And then we had like Tannhauser, who is a augmented man who probably has some political beliefs and wants to tell you about his political beliefs and possibly provide you with his manifesto. We have Volley, the like Sylph Sky Pirate Captain Swashbuckler.
She's a lot of fun.
She is a lot of fun. Odo does a great job with her and like hitting that voice. We have Hulky Crow, who's playing what is totally a tree man. It's a Konrasu. It's just like Konrasu and others. It's hard when you do your own setting to be like, here is this thing that like is very tied in with Galarian, but we like the rules. So it's like, here is this moat of pure, in this case, it's pure anarchy instead of law, but we're doing some different things there.
Sure.
Who is like very childlike as a character and is probably the character that if there's a big red button in the room, we'll go and press the big red button.
Oh yeah.
And then we have Zoren, who is playing Oren. You know, just file off one letter from his name apparently. He whoa man, I'm a Strix druid. Whoa man. And we're getting a lot of mileage out of that. It's a group that when you see them all together is kind of like a train wreck. And that's what people love to watch. Like, seriously, there's a whole thing on YouTube of like, you can just go watch disasters. Come watch our podcast. That's my thrilling endorsement for it.
Well, I was just thinking, if Oren is a Strix, then would it be Oren in the air?
Well, his wings are clipped, so he doesn't go in the air anymore.
Oh, okay. Instead of Zoren the Bear, it's
I get you.
Anyway,
I get you.
I expected a bigger reaction.
Now that brings me to a question. Like, you are playing a Pathfinder 2 game, and
Yes.
I was a little bit shocked that a Konrasu showed up. So like that you said, that's super specific. And we have the Konrasu, we have a Strix, we have a Sylph. Like, these are very specific.
Android.
And an android, which is a little bit more disguised than the others. But like, why was the decision to do that instead of like making all custom ancestries for your world?
Well, one, all custom ancestries is a lot of work. And we kind of had to do this like really quickly. Like, we did a bunch of custom content for it, but building a world and then building all the ancestries and building all the support, that's another thing entirely, which we weren't kind of there for. But also, like, a lot of the Pathfinder ancestries like fit the bill. So why rework something when you can take something and use it, right? Especially mechanically speaking. It's one of those cool things that like is a big big secret. You see that Lost Omens line on my shelf? But I can only use that in a Galarian campaign. No, you can use it in whatever games you want. You can just kind of file things off and use them. It's pretty cool that way. And so I strongly suggest like everyone out there do it. But also it's like one of the appeals, I think, to Pathfinder 2nd edition especially is the sheer like number of just cool things that you don't see in other RPGs that you can just be like, hey, I'm gonna play this. Like, I don't know, our party, as you just pointed out, is a whole bunch of different stuff that is very unique.
I'm curious, in addition to the I'm sure the further changes we'll see on the ancestries, there's a lot of changes to the cosmology of the setting. Why did you decide to change it up so much in particular? I mean, I think the Crucible of Creation is a really cool idea. I like how that all sounds, but I'm wondering where that all came from. I feel like it's very easy to just be like, oh, well, the GMG has all the rules for Astral Plane and all that stuff, and I'll just use that.
Yeah, I think that the like cosmology that's presented in the GMG and Pathfinder is great cosmology. I love it. I love my extraplanar stuff. Jessica Redicop was in my high school campaign. I'm mandated to love extraplanar stuff. That being said, I think that for like a Souls inspired kind of darker, grimmer world, I wanted to like really shift the cosmology and give us a bit of opportunity to explore different things with it. I, for example, am unabashedly opposed to the concept of alignment. I think the alignment system is stupid. Yes. So in order for that to make sense in like a meta contextual gaming way, I decided I would introduce the fundamental powers, which are just embodiments of the stupid concepts of law, good, evil, and chaos. Because that way, at least it makes sense with how these things flow into the world and define people, yada, yada. And so that was like a change I wanted to make and something I thought we could really explore in the setting as well, of having these sort of different layers of deities. And what we did with the deities and sort of explain our cosmology and pantheon a bit for those of you who are listening, there is the fundamentals, which is those alignment based powers, and they sort of exist on their own plane, the fundamental battlefield, where they're like constant. You can just like imagine a plane that's divided into 4 and they're just constantly like smacking into each other, being like, good is stupid, evil is best, no, chaos is best, and then like it's just like a constant brawl. And then we have the sort of elemental churn, which is very similar, and like the elemental powers in this, where we have like Auntie Drown and Papa Storm and Uncle Blaze, that's all very like seated in material elements. Like that's the building blocks of the world. So they are the powers responsible for creating the material plane, whereas our fundamental powers are more for like what ends up seeding consciousness and life in those planes. And then the main like pantheon that we have, the first house, is actually ascended mortals that through some mysterious not Starstone means became deities and like now grant spells and are, well, not as involved, but more involved than say other deities in mortal affairs. And then we have, this other concept called the entities, which is all your weird, like out of space and time stuff that's unexplainable and will probably eat you in your nightmare sleep.
Okay.
I had a question about the first house, actually, which is probably not a thing at all that you thought about. And I might just be reading too much into it, but you're free to steal as much of it as you want for your campaign. That's how GMs do. So there are 9 gods tied to it, but 8 of them were there first, and then the prince kind of joined in afterward. And I noticed that the holy symbol has 8 points. Is there significance there?
So I bet my partner is like losing their goddamn mind in the other room because when we did this, the symbol, it was very intentional. And then we had a small little symbol in the center. So there's 8 points, but then there's the room for a 9th symbol in the middle of that symbol. So we actually have 2 versions of that symbol, which are depending on like what orthodoxy of the church you follow. There might be that symbol in the middle, because like in this house we worship like the original 8, dog darn it, and then the others were like, no, there's 9 now, Dad. You've got to give that up. Like, so that is actually something we have a visual element for in our campaign as well.
That's great.
Very cool. I had a question going back a little bit. You said that there was this respawn mechanic where you die and maybe someone puts you back and you have this rot. And you had mentioned that maybe one of the deities just sort of like plops you back into the world to let you try again. Is that strictly just to get around the whole player death situation, or as an homage to Dark Souls where you keep respawning but uglier each time, or like how?
Yeah, so it's absolutely an homage to Dark Souls.
Okay.
And whilst the concept of sponsorship is what we say in the setting is like primarily tied to deities, it's not necessarily deities. Like one of the examples we give in the article on it is you could have founded a cult of personality that like they're the thing that's giving you sponsorship, and every time you die and come back, one of your cultists permanently just like disappears and dies, and so you can like be powered by, or you might have an item that like is wearing down as you use it. But the thought is anytime you die and come back, regardless of what is using its power to keep you alive, like there is that little niggling bit of rot that takes root inside of you, and that's what gives you the rotten condition, which is that like permanently wounded condition. But also that lets us do some interesting things mechanically, where what we could explore, and there's some hints of it in the rot document we have on our Patreon, is we can do things that tie off of that condition. So you might get like Rotten 2 and be closer to death having died twice. But you might have like an armor property rune that, for every rotten condition you have, you get a bonus to your AC, like an extra bonus. And so there are these neat things we can tie to that play off of it. And we can also do things like really, really brutal monsters can like have a crit success thing that they apply the rotten condition to you without even like stuff like that just shows the versatility of how PF2 works system mechanically to like bolt new things onto it because it's built wide rather than just tall.
Right. Or like something that's really terrible to a living person, but if you have a rot 2 or more, then it heals you instead or something. And you're like, well, that's weird. That's really cool.
Now, how you mentioned that the rot is taking hold, like in the campaign and the story, like how is the rot portrayed by the characters that are dealing with it? Like the whole world is dealing with it.
Yes. And so there's this general apathy that has overtaken the world, and in fact is by some people blamed on the rot because like, people aren't taking this threat seriously. Spoiler alert, it's almost like it's climate change. Like people don't take it seriously, so they're just like, oh, well, like it'll sort itself out, or we've tried doing things, but it's not quite working. But then at like a street level and a character level, you have people who become affected by this. And so the rot in and of itself, like there's the deep lore vaults of what it actually is, and only I know, bwahaha. But like there's like it has some effects where as like people and things become more rotten, there's like an alien intelligence that's seeping in that like if you become fully rotten, like you die, I think 4 times throughout the course without repairing any of that condition, you come back as a like rot templated enemy. So did your player die to this? Cool. Your player can now be the next boss they fight, and they have to regain their last respawn point by fighting your like character. But there's like an intelligence that's pushing that agenda. And so there's still a lot of just trepidation. Like some places it's kind of become an accepted norm. Other places it's burn it with fire. And so it's different places in the world are handling it differently.
One of the things I really noticed about the campaign as you're presenting it and is the main city itself. Like we talked about it from the cosmology, but like at the more local level, the place that especially people following the podcast are going to be most familiar with is the city of Outset.
Yes.
Tell us about City of Outset and why you decided to go with a mega city.
Okay. So 40K has these things called hive cities. They're pretty eponymous with 40K. It seemed like a neat thing for us to play off of. Also, one of the things we found with Warhams, which was a campaign that jumped around a lot. We went to like kind of Planet of the Week, Planet every 3 weeks. We didn't get a good chance to like establish a ground level cast of NPCs who could like continually be reacted like or interacted with. So we wanted something where the players could have like this city, but also be a city where adventuring made sense, where there could be a lot of threats. So Outset was that. And so it kind of came to, okay, we want to start in a city. Well, if we want to start in a city, what could make a city interesting? And so we went with the hive city. To give an idea for listeners, like the base level of Outset as a city is that it is 20 stories at its lower points. Like basically the ground level assumes that there's like 20 stories of buildings, and then some of the other regions go up to 120 stories. So it's like this sort of like up and down city, and it's built around 9 constantly magically growing pillars, which are pilasters basically. And so the city is constantly growing to keep up with these pillars, but the full weight of the city is pushing it down into the earth. And so the idea is they're constantly building up, the city is constantly sinking. And so over the generations, all of the previous eras and epochs of Outset are now buried in effectively big mega dungeons of city underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
So it immediately gave us like, here's our dungeon, here's our big history area that they could like you when you create a campaign setting, you don't just want to make it for the campaign you're telling. You want to make it something where like people, especially with a show like what we're doing, and where we want to provide Patreon content, drive through RPG content, like we want to have content for GMs to do their own stuff. We want to make sure that there's hooks for everyone. So like our campaign is not going to be the quick, we're always going to be delving into the Undercity mega dungeon campaign, but you could do that. Or you could be like politicking in just one of the 9 pilasters, because one of the 9 pilasters is the equivalent of like a metropolis in many other fantasy settings.
I always like the mega city. I think it gives you just so many opportunities for adventure. There's a lot of things you can do in a city. There's a lot of resources nearby. And because there are literally millions of people, you don't have to worry about like, oh, can I come up with this NPC? Can I come up with this storefront? Can I do that? Sure, it's huge. Who cares? Make a new thing. And I think that's one of the beautiful parts of a mega city style campaign.
And linking into that, one of the things that we that I chatted at you about during one of your Dark Souls live streams was how important I think it is that some GMs play through that game and see how it handles level design. Are you going to be taking lessons from Dark Souls' level design and how you run this campaign with like verticality and more than just a flat down map for your game?
Yeah. So we had our first session on Saturday where, like, spoiler alerts, minor spoilers though. We had 2 custom maps, also done by my partner Chatel. Very awesome. One of them was like a basic arena, which kind of got our combat started and showcased like your basic fight. Yay. The next one was actually an apartment that's built off the edge of a sinkhole in the city, and so the concept is that like property taxes around the sinkhole are super high. So what some enterprising citizens do to evade taxes is they buy a 10 by 10 square of land and then build a rickety wooden building off the side of the sinkhole, and they only have to pay taxes for that 10 by 10 foot square. And so our players get sent into the like rickety hanging apartment, which is this building that's off the side of a sinkhole and has like floorboards missing, and there's like a bridge connecting them, and so there's a lot of like, oh no, we could like fall, oh no, we have to like, there's one point where there's a chest across a chasm, and like one of the characters, who is a Strix, can just jump across and glide to it, because I didn't think of that, like there's lots of fun elements and showcasing of that. I'm actually working on a map right now for a future session that is heavily vertical, to like the point I think it's going to have 4 levels with different like connection points all around. And that brings us to the VTT we're using, which is Foundry Virtual Tabletop, which has some really cool functionality to support that, like having teleporters that will actually let the player like click and zip over up the steps to where they need to go.
Yeah. Foundry has a lot of options these days, especially for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So I think that's a good choice. Also, because there is such a rich community of people making add-ons, it's pretty easy to say, hey, does anyone have something that does this? No. Will someone make it? And then, a week later, you've got your add-on.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's something I've been in contact with some of the Foundry folks to like, hey, if we wanted to get like this cool rotten condition, would that be something that could ever happen? And things like that, which I love. And honestly, what probably the biggest reason, so it was Peyton who got me into Foundry. He showed it to me and we started doing it with Warhams. But one of the reasons we really went into it hard was it is such like a clean presentation. Like if you get everything working, and it definitely takes more setup than Roll20, but if you get everything working just right, it visually looks great and it plays so nice where like people are targeting things, they roll their attack, it tells them if they hit the GM, I can right click, I can apply damage, like all of these things, which yes, I know exist in Roll20, but sometimes are hidden or like require you to have like basic algebra for macros. Like these are just things that are like really built in, and I've been blown away by it.
One of the things I am curious about is why the choice to go with Pathfinder 2 specifically, and how well is this building in with your game? I know that you have a background and you, Peyton, liked it, but you weren't playing Pathfinder with a crew beforehand. The allure of 5e has to always be omnipresent for any streaming game. So you went with PF2. So what does it bring to Rotgrind that you like?
Okay, so one, it is a game I'm comfortable with. It is a game that Zoren's comfortable with. That has like a huge appeal, and like certainly some of our other players like weren't quite as on board at the beginning, and we sort of like did a bunch of test sessions to work that out, and eventually figured out like, okay, this is I think the direction we're going to go. Really, for me, what sells it is how Pathfinder 2nd Edition is such a streamable game. And I'm going to say something. I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to say it, but we just, I know. See, this is super secret. So we put out a fan survey for our first episode to very much like to sort of suss out like, what do you think of the first episode? Hey, and there were a bunch of questions on it. And one of them was like, so how interested are you in like Pathfinder 2nd Edition after seeing this? And overwhelmingly, there were just people like, I am very interested in this game now. Like, I have not played it before, or I have a 5e player, but I have now seen how this game works, and I am so interested to see more. And I am like, this game looks like it plays really well. And to me, that was huge. I think a lot of people with role-playing games get sort of hemmed up in the book problem. I sit down and I'm reading this and I'm not seeing it in actual play. And then like, especially with PF2, and Pathfinder in general, which has like the library, as I point, the massive library of books. And you're like, oh, all these books are doing is telling me the things I can, like only the things I can do, and I can't do anything outside of that, which like in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you can play it that way, but that's not how we play it. Like we actually have some custom rules for like hero point use that allows you to do the narrative declaration. Look, we named something after ourselves, which is actually a term we took from Wrath and Glory. But like we allow our players to spend 2 hero points to make a narrative declaration, which just lets them break the rules, do something cool. But
no, it's super cool.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
But for PF2, I think a lot of people like look at the game inherently and go, "Oh, this is just a mechanics game for mechanical nerds, and that's it." But then they actually start like, if you sit down and you play the game and you see things like 3-action economy in play, it flows really well, and again, it presents really well, which was probably the biggest reason in my mind to go with it.
Right. And honestly, that's one thing I don't like about PF2's reputation is that aspect, because PF2 actually provides like an amazing amount of tools to improvise, like because all the numbers are balanced against each other. You can do things like a craft bakery check against armor class, and it makes sense if you can come up with a scenario. So like when you need to improvise a salute, like a unique problem that doesn't have rules for it, the game is just made for that. And so I kind of wish more people just kind of embrace the zaniness that the game gives you freedom to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, anytime someone wants to do something, the answer should always be, sure, let's figure out a way to make that work. You know, if I'm going to use athletics against your, I don't know, will save, because I'm just like impressing you so incredibly with my feats of strength and you're just going to pass out, sure, make a roll. We have DCs for that.
At the end of the day, too, like Pathfinder and even D&D are games that provide a strong mechanical framework because people want mechanical frameworks. Viewers want a mechanical framework because if all you're doing is improving, there's tons of great improv shows out there. There's tons of great like storytelling RPG systems out there that are very rules light. Sometimes having a bit more rules and a bit more constraints makes the victories, makes the challenges a lot more impactful. And like Hero Points is a prime example. We came from Wrath and Glory, which was a like D6 based pool system. And by the end of the game, like we had players who were like, oh, you need 4 successes, and a success is on a 4+ on a D6. Okay, I'm rolling 8 dice. Then I'm adding 6 because chat really loved me and bought me a lot of extra dice. Now I'm spending another thing to re-roll that. Oh, and 6s explode. I have 13. Is that good enough? And I'm like, yes, it's good. Yes, you pass. Whereas I really like the hero point mechanic because like having our audience by hero points, which is something we allowed, isn't like a game breaking thing. It actually adds like almost more tension because like player rolls a 5, you miss your attack. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to re-roll then with a hero point. Oh, okay. Are you going to roll a 1? Are you going to crit fail and have something terrible happen? Like that extra tension is great. I love that.
Right. Yeah. I think if you've, I've recently tweeted, I'm pretty sure that hero point rerolls never get above a 5.
No.
I've seen some like, not 1 to 17 switch ups. It does happen. Not often, but it happens.
Sometimes it actually it worked out well in our game. I think for the most part it worked for the players more than hindered them. But we also ended up getting a really cool coding thing in that allowed people when they donate to fill up a bar. And so once we hit the, and you can set it per player. So when you're watching us, you can be like, I donate 100 bits to Rahua. And then their little bar under their character will bump up. And once we hit, I think it's 2,500 points, ta-da, you get a hero point. So it's a neat little thing that we have, which like gets chat really involved, especially when they want to spite me, because they love nothing more than spiting me. So if I'm like, oh, looks like I'm going to kill you guys, that's how we get those sweet donuts. Don't worry, I don't actually do that. But chat really just likes to hurt me, I find.
So
well, sure, if you're the GM.
How do I give you villain points, Thursty?
We actually debated that because Peyton obviously did like Oblivion or Band of Bravos, and they had like villain points and stuff. It's a Dark Souls game. Like, I don't need. Wait, like spoiler alert: the end of episode 1 is just like a tasting of the type of brutality to come.
But what if we want to have a Phantom invade, Thursty? What if we want to have a Phantom invade?
There was a point during our first stream where Peyton had to pull up the Invader banished thing onto our overlay because they beat a crab and they were very proud of themselves. And not like a giant crab. Like, no, it was like an actual, like, small crab that they just kicked off the side of us. Yeah, it's a thing.
Oh, no. They should have kept it and eaten it for dinner.
You're definitely wearing the Dark Souls inspiration on your sleeve with Rotgrind. But are there any other things?
Is my Demon Souls shirt not enough either?
Are there any other things that you're pulling on for inspiration? For me, I might just be seeing this as, City of a Million Faces got a lot of stone faces throughout. That reads very much as a Kingdom Death kind of thing, which is, of course, just another Dark Souls thing, right? But like they're all kind of in the same pool playing together. But are there any other elements that you're drawing upon from other settings or inspirations?
Yes. I am heavily drawing from the deep lore that is the Legend of Heroes series, which, if you've never heard of it, is the greatest JRPG series ever to exist, and you should definitely play it. It's a game series I started playing like 2 years ago now, starting with the Trails in the Sky series. It was like I went on reddit.com/JRPG and I'm like, I need a JRPG because I want something that has menus and I click buttons and things die. And everyone and their dog was like, this series is like the best JRPG of all times. It'll get a little bit weeby for you, but trust me, it'll be great. And I went through and I started playing it, and it like blew my mind because I think right now there's 9 games that are translated, and like having got through the 9th game, I'm like, there are callbacks to minor side quests in the first game. Like, here's an NPC that I remember seeing as like a pixelated mass, and now is like fully rendered, like giving me massive like, and so that type of stuff, I love that kind of storytelling where very minor things early on kind of gestate and eventually come back. It's something I did with Warhams, with like, oh, here's this character who's entirely minor and like you don't think anything of, and now of course chat will be like, anytime I introduce an NPC, they'll be like, sus out the airlock, sus. So yeah, that's another big inspiration for me. Obviously all the Souls games in their blanket too.
Yeah, I love that series because like literally every NPC in that game, if in those games, if you just check back in them regularly, they're going through their own entire story. They are the main character of their own storyline that you can completely miss and have no influence on, but you can follow it like from game to game.
Yeah, I think it's like their big gimmick, especially in the earlier games, is every time you advance any point of the main story quest, the dialogue for every NPC in the world updates. If you look on the Wikipedia page for, I think it's the second game, it's like 2 times the length of War and Peace for the script. Like the game script is that. So it's a fantastic series. Highly recommend.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're running this game. It is in this grim, dark world. Is there any hope, or is it just survival?
Well, that's where the players come in, because the players are all a bunch of trained shuckle-wookery actors who...
Right.
Yeah, who are just all sorts of funs and smiles, and they just laugh in the face of that darkness, and they're the ones who bring that joy, and we have that like happy experience. I think my role is to be like, world is dark, but like also, come on, like in our first episode they fought something called the dank bear. Like there's gonna be like moments of levity. Like I think I unironically had an NPC be like, ha 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 ha, all Dark Souls laughy for like a minute after they finish talking. They're like, are you done now? I'm like, yes. Like we're a comedy show at the end of the day. It's just the world itself is meant to be very dark, depressing. But what I want to show is you can have a grim, dark, depressing setting and still have it be fun depending on your group, right? Like we're putting out these PDFs, and like everything we're putting out on the Patreon for this, like this is all content like I take very seriously. Like I write it like I would for my job. I make sure it ties in. Yes, like we might have something that sounds ridiculous on its face. Like our one of our free monsters that we released was the Mimout House, which is a mimic outhouse. The write-up for that thing talks about how terrifying it is.
Yeah, that's really rude. That's so rude.
But like goes into like talking about like that these things show malicious intelligence. They like set themselves up in like the middle of places where people might catch dysentery and are like, I'm an oasis in the middle of nowhere. Come to, and like, but there's a malign intelligence, like stuff like that like takes something really haha funny joke and like, oh, this is actually just terrifying. And so that's sort of the approach we're taking.
We got a question from Lava Bang. Does the setting present any story beats around unforeseen consequences for what seem like hard-fought solutions? Have you revealed any yet?
Yes, so I can't go into my my deep GM reservoir of things that the players have already done to hurt themselves in 10 sessions. But yes, there are certainly some of those that always crop up. I think as we start to explore the show a bit more and get into the world, again, we're only in episode 1. We'll
Sure.
start seeing ramifications, and that's the sort of gameplay I like to run as a GM. I really like to oh, are you going to do this thing that's really dumb right now? And you can, because you can get away with it. Sure, it'll probably come back and bite you in 10 sessions. I remember a very long time ago, I ran a stream on Paizo. I was GMing, I should say, for a stream called Punch and Crawl. And there was a whole little story arc in that where some of the players knew about a distress signal from a planet. And then they decided not to follow up on it. And they were and it was literally because they forgot. The players themselves forgot, but they had it in their notes and everything, and had talked about it in depth. And then they came back and they're like, I don't know, we're gonna take a 5-month break. I'm gonna go watch some Strawberry Machine Cake concerts, and I'm gonna go. And so I waited another 10 sessions, except for Jenny in chat. Jenny didn't know. Yeah. She came into the campaign late. They came back at that time, and then eventually I sent them to that planet where they interacted with the ghosts of the population who'd all died because of their horrific actions. And I just I gave them a 3-episode arc of just, you should feel bad about what you've done. It was great. It was perfect.
You monster.
Yes.
So they can watch the show. Is this weekly, monthly? How often?
Oh, yes. So yes, we air bi-weekly over on twitch.tv/Zoren the Bear at 3 p.m. CST. Our first episode was on the 22nd of January, which means our next one is going to be on the 5th of February, and then every 2 weeks after that, Saturday, 3 p.m. CST. We're also going to be releasing the episodes. The first 5 episodes will get a pretty much as soon as we can get it up, we get it up. So Zoren goes through and edits the audio, makes it all fancy, and then puts it up on YouTube over on his channel. After the first 5 episodes, what we do is we still do the live stream, so you can come catch us live on Twitch. Yay. You can also sub to Zoren, get the VODs, check them out there. Yay. But if you're wanting to watch them on YouTube, after the first 5 episodes, we basically put them on a 2-week delay so that you're essentially 1 episode behind the current. That way we can put them up on a VOD only on our Patreon, so that people who are on a Patreon can just get early access, essentially. And then that's the big pull for our Patreon, is that you get early access to the show if you can't watch it live, as well as all of the cool PDF content that we're putting out there. Something I should mention as well, things you get for being on our Patreon that's really cool is any of the creatures that show up in the show. We do PDFs that have all their stats. So all the stats get thrown up, unique creatures. They aren't a full bestiary entry. I'm not writing 1,000-word backstory for the dank bear to start, but you'll get the stats for it, and the stats for any of the creatures or NPCs, as well as any of our generally our maps, any custom maps. Our plan is to make those available, assuming we reach certain tiers, as long as they're custom maps that we own and created. Obviously, if we're using someone else's, sorry, we don't give you Paizo maps, or we don't give you another person's maps. But yeah, that's sort of our plan, is to give out that content through our Patreon as a big thank you, and also for people out there who want to run their own games with it.
Is there long-term eagle-eyed dreams of a Rotgrind hardback campaign setting available at a bookstore near you?
Yes. I mean, I wish I could yes, absolutely. Let me tell you about all the great visions I have. But no, absolutely, I would love to do that. Right now, we're just kind of trying to keep on with a good release of content. We've currently done the primer, which gives you the overview of the world. We've done a document on the rot itself and some of the rules and mechanics. It gives you talking about that sponsorship, talking about rot damage, rot and condition, some of the armor or weapon runes. That's all one PDF. spoilers of stuff to come. We're going to have a Pantheon article that's going to do like a full breakdown of all of our Pantheons. Here, I'll give you a funny behind the scenes story because people love those. So there I am in an org play chat, and we're talking about deities, and me just having done the Rotgrind Pantheon article, and like suddenly it was asked, like, how do we handle this uncommon spell? And Mark Seifter being like, oh, if a deity has an uncommon spell, that should be an errata, because like deities shouldn't offer uncommon spells by default, like theoretically, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, good, because I just had this happen with the deity article I was writing, and like for ours, we have like, oh, like this deity has dominate because they're kind of a jerk. But if you aren't using that in your setting, here's the alternative, and we parenthetical that. So we're going to have an article that's going to go into all the deities and provide very much like the core rulebook does, the sort of like abbreviated, like quick description, like stat block,
Sure.
blah blah.
Very familiar, yes.
Yeah. And we're trying to, like, right now, my focus is sort of the creative writer for it, is to really get the setting, the core setting stuff. Like after that, I've just finished up a big, like 10,000, 12,000 word thing on like, here's the quick outset primer. Like, here's everything you need to know at like a high level. Yes, this absolutely could be a 400-page PDF. I'm looking at you, Absalom, but I promise that'll be a one-day thing. Like, this is like here's the stuff you'll need, and that's where we're focused on right now, along with like bestiary entries and like items and other cool stuff.
Ooh, what unique items do you have in Rotgrind?
A nail bomb for an alchemist, if you want to use nail bombs. That's something we have. Let's see, what other fun things? Well, we have like rot runes, and they're like counterpart moss runes. One of moss, which is like the primal antithesis to the rot in the world. Ooh, deep lore stuff. You'll learn more about that on our next episode, maybe. And then one of the weapons I'm designing is literally just a ghoul head on the end of a stick. Just fun stuff like that.
The ghoul mace.
It's more like a stick, just like a spear with a head at the end. It's like chomp chomp, and you just sort of hold it out, and it chomps for you. It's really hungry.
Ghouling star.
Yeah, like messed up stuff like that.
Okay, great.
Awesome. And Thursty, again,
Yes.
if people want to find Rotgrind or support you, where's the best place for them to go?
Okay, so first of all, you can go to narrativedeclaration.com. All one word, narrativedeclaration.com. That'll give you the timer to our next episode. That'll give you all the links to everywhere you want to go to support us. But I'll just relay some of those other ones. You also want to go to patreon.com/narrative declaration. That's where you can like support us directly, help us out. We offer a just ton of content there, and like again the VODs, all that sort of stuff, PDFs. So if you're just big Pathfinder fans and you want more content, oh boy, we're giving you tons of content. And then you can also go to twitch.tv/Zoren the Bear, and that's where you can find our live streams of this every second Saturday.
All right.
And for extra super special bonus points, you can follow me on twitch.tv/uncalledgm, because I'm shameless that way, and I play Dark Souls there and talk about the game a lot and other things.
Awesome. And don't go away. We're going to be right back with Thursty to go over the Pathfinder news right after this.
Yay.
You're up, Vanessa.
Pathfinder news. Pathfinder news. Pathfinder news. Pathfinder news.
And we're back. In the Pathfinder news section, we talk about all the hot goodness going on for Pathfinder and related gaming wonderfulness. We have a couple of stories this week about Pathfinder, the first of which is the stealth, then not very stealth, but not very celebrated announcement of a new adventure. Luis Loza, tell us about what has been announced.
Yes, I see what you're talking about. This was actually announced a couple weeks ago. See, I work on Paizo time, not on like real world time.
Right.
So to me, things like this are like, oh yeah, months ago. What are you talking about?
We live in the past for you.
The Count of the Cobalt King PF2 Anniversary Edition, which is compiling some really classic Pathfinder adventures, specifically Hollow's Last Hope, Crown of the Cobalt King, and Hungry Are the Dead, all updated from their 3.5 editions all the way to second ed. And it's a huge adventure, compiling all of them together, making them one running narrative from first to sixth level. And that'll be cool. It'll be the first time people can get Hollow's Last Hope in print in a very long time.
Indeed.
I remember taking the time to try to track that down and eventually spending $50 to $60 on what's a 16-page little book. But yeah, it's an exciting time. It'll be another great opening adventure for people who are jumping into the game. First to sixth level covers a wide range of levels, a good amount of playtime for people, and it's just another thing alongside the Troubles in Otari and the Plaguestone adventure and other first level adventures about how to get your adventures career started, and that'll be fun. According to this, it's expected to come out in late September of this year, so look forward to that.
Right, and I'm really excited because it takes place in the Vale. What's it called again?
Dark Moon
The
Vale.
Dark Moon Vale,
Yeah.
which is a fun place to adventure. It's in northern Absalom. You've got like the Lumber Consortium. You've got Fae that hate everybody because of the Lumber Consortium. You've got kobolds. You've got werewolves. You've got knights turning into werewolves. It's a great little place to have fun in, and it's a kobold adventure. And I love kobolds. I love kobold dungeons, especially when you never see a kobold in the kobold dungeon.
Those are the best kind.
Though I am wondering, we see the cover of this, and it's the original cover of Crown of the Cobalt King. I know that's a placeholder, most likely. I am curious as to because kobolds have gotten a facelift for in Pathfinder, and I'm wondering,
depending on your opinions,
if we're going to see a bunch of updated kobold art, or if that kind of eliminates the advantage of using a reprint of an adventure.
I mean, it's in a slot for the adventures line, the modules line, so it would have the budget necessary to get new art and stuff as necessary. There's probably NPCs and things that didn't have art beforehand, so I could see the updated art for specific characters, especially considering some of this art, like I said, is quite old. It rings back to the 3.5 days, and maybe we feel like it doesn't match the current Pathfinder look anymore. So I haven't been keeping up on this because one of the few things I can do as a Paizo employee to actually keep myself surprised is to not pay attention to the things that I'm actually interested in and just be like, oh, that's happening. But I actually won't go in and look at the files and poke around behind the scenes because I want to be surprised when it comes out. So that happens sometimes, like in cases like this.
I don't know how you would resist. I would just look at everything all the time.
Oh, I don't resist, but I specifically am strategic about the things I do look at and the things I don't look at.
Yeah, like Book of the Dead, open that right away. I'm like, oh, what's in here? Oh, I'm sorry, Chad. You have to wait for that. Oh.
And I am curious as to the fact that this didn't pass through Pathfinder 1 to get to Pathfinder 2. I'm curious as to how that looks at the far end of things.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. There's a lot of monsters that are getting converted over as well. But the thing is, going from 3.5 to first edition Pathfinder is far less of a leap than it is to go from 3.5 to 2E. So I think if you really wanted to, you could pick up the old, Hollow's Last Hope for sure is a free product, so you can go get that right now and convert it to 1E if you really wanted to.
It's free or $600.
Yes, free or $600.
One of the two.
Yeah. You're not getting my copy.
No. I treat mine with precious, precious gloves. All right. Next up, another fun announcement. It is the Pathfinder Battle Lines is getting miniatures.
Oh,
and we're even getting a tiny little Anati with an adventurer's backpack. And it's wonderful.
So cool. They're so precious. They're so cute. Can you zoom in on those? Because holy cow. I've
been trying. This is as zoomed as you get.
Everyone has loved the Moengi book so much. And then now they're getting a miniatures line. There's just so much cool stuff in there. And things that have never had miniatures before, as far as I know. It's so cool.
I mean, with the exception of the big bear and this
Yes.
tree, like most of the stuff in this set that they've shown off is like these don't exist anywhere. You can't just go
Mhm.
and get spider backpack miniature anywhere or half a dude miniature anywhere.
Nope.
Like these very specific longy stuff is not something you're going to have in your standard D&D miniature collection. So like this is actually exciting news.
Oh yeah.
I did just Google half a dude miniature, but it's just a pic. It's a bunch of pictures of miniatures. So
Dang it, Thirsty. Those are some.
I
Really
am
cool
a little
looking pics, though.
disappointed that they
Kitty.
put the invisible half on that miniature, and it isn't just like try to balance just the half of a miniature on a stand.
That might be hard to print. Yeah. You'd have to have it wearing like long robes or something to steady it on the base. But
Oh,
yeah,
I
because it
have
would
no-
come to you leaned over, and you'd be like, "What is this leaning figure?"
This is a pancake person. No, I have done some questionable miniature mounts on bases on custom 3D prints. Like half of the left toe sometimes is only thing holding up a dragon.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, but like not much to say other
Beautiful.
than coming soon. It looks awesome, and these are definitely miniatures that no matter what your miniature source, you probably ain't got.
Mm-hmm.
Truth.
Love them.
And that is the end of the Pathfinder news, unless I'm missing something. Anybody else have any Pathfinder news for us?
No Pathfinder news.
Talk to me in 2 weeks, and I'll have some Pathfinder news for you.
You know, I'm
Well, we
I'm
will.
scheduled to talk to you in exactly 2 weeks, Luis.
Exactly
Well, look
2
at
weeks.
that.
That's pretty handy.
Awesome. All right. And with that, with no more news to talk about, that brings us over to our shout outs. Vanessa,
All right.
are you ready?
I gotcha. Always. Wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups, wrap-ups, and shout-outs.
And we're back in the wrap ups and shout out section. We love to talk to the many things that excite us that may or may not have anything to do with Pathfinder. To lead us off this week, I want to give some of the network shout outs, of course. One of the ones I want to shout out to is the No Direction Beyond 65. You all just came back with a bombshell episode where you reviewed Galactic Magic. Vanessa Hoskins was part of that. Do go check that episode out. It's live on the feed as of a week ago today, or a week less than a week ago. This is so weird being offset from
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Less than a week ago, we talked about Galactic Magic. It is still in my galaxy brain. Somehow magically.
Precog stuff.
The intrepid heroes are reaching the point in their adventure path where they are entering the fiery center of the sun, which is a adventure I'm jealous that they're getting to do, and especially with the crew they've got going on there. And we want to definitely see more about that. And I do also want to recommend that you check out Rob Pontius Investing in, I'm sorry, did you say Street Magic? Where he talks about a board game that he is evidently in love with.
Very cool.
All right. Any shout outs from you, Luis?
Oh, yes. Friend of the show, Sheppy Rodriguez, has a Patreon.
Ooh, Sheppy's Patreon.
It hasn't officially gone live yet. You can start giving Sheppy money now. But the official launch of the Patreon is, I think, February 1st, from what I recall reading. And, well, Sheppy is awesome. You've seen lots of Sheppy's art in Valiant, and there's art in Roll for Combat, lots of other stuff. Sheppy illustrated a little monster called the Costello Bot 4000 for us recently. So Sheppy's amazing, and Sheppy's looking to do maps and miniature tokens, I guess, in an isometric style, because according to the Patreon information, Sheppy grew up on the likes of Diablo and other isometric action games like that, and it's just like let's recreate that. So there's lots of cool maps. They're coming. I remember Sheppy releasing one piece for Infinite, which was a recreation of a map from Curse of the Crimson Throne, which was great. So just expect more cool art, and hey, go support Sheppy and all they're doing to get some cool stuff in the process. I mean, I would support Sheppy either way, but I happen to get miniatures and maps as a result. So I'd say go check that out.
We love Sheppy, and I love Sheppy's art, and any excuse I can do to support Sheppy, I will happily jump onto, and I highly recommend our listeners do the same. Any others, Luis?
I think that's it for me for now.
Vanessa!
Come back in 2 weeks. I'll have more to talk about.
I really want to talk about Queer Finder. So over on Pathfinder Infinite, where you can now self-publish all sorts of fun stuff using the Galarian IP, a group of us, including myself, I'm an author on this product. A group of us put together the Queer Finder issue number 1, Bars of Absalom. It is a magazine that is focused to LGBTQ plus related content for Galarian. And they're doing this Bars of Absalom special with a bunch of bars in there, which is super cool. We also have some holiday special stuff happening in there. It's a little late for the holidays, but that's fine. Lots of cool things in there. I wrote a little story about an Arshay festival called the Festival of Mirrors. It's basically a big party that they have on the winter solstice or around that time, where people can just sort of go and have a fun time and take these true form elixirs that help change them into sort of how they would see themselves. And they have this magical glass that'll show you a reflection of yourself as you walk by, so that you can sort of see what that will look like if you take the drink. And there's a whole little bit of prose in there from the point of view of one of the attendants, one of the clergy that works for Arshay and is working the party. So, but there's a bunch of really great stuff in there. There is a comic where Caden Kalian and Nethies hook up. So if that is interesting to you, there is just so much really fun stuff. And it's really been great being part of this team because as like everyone on this team is super excited as new stuff comes in, new articles, new layouts, everything, they just get posted on there and we all get to get a sneak peek and it is super cool. So absolutely go check it out. Again, it's called Queer Finder. It's on Pathfinder Infinite. There's a few links in chat and it's amazing. And it's only $10 right now. So usually it'll be, I think, $12 or $13 price per episode, but this inaugural one during its launch is only $10. So for, I want to say 60-ish pages, something like that. It's really long. There's a lot of content in there. But yeah, in record time for Copper. They released a couple days ago and they already have Copper.
Wow.
Yeah.
So any other shout outs for thee?
That's the big one. Nope. Go get Queer Finder. Should I have another one?
No.
Okay.
Go get Queer Finder a second time.
Buy for someone you like.
And Thursty.
Oh, hi. I did a bunch of shout outs already, but I will give another one that is not related to the thing I was talking about. Here. You should go check out my coworker Jenny's stream. You can find her over at twitch.tv/Space Princess J. I would drop that in the chat, but I have too many windows open. Oh gosh, someone will get that. But she is doing a Starfinder live play that she's doing on Sundays, I believe. I see her in the chat. She might drop the time there. But yeah, she's doing a Starfinder live play, and we need more cool Starfinder live plays. I know this is a Pathfinder show, but look at me infecting you with my Starfinder love. She's a coworker. She's another Paizo dev doing that. Yeah, for 4 p.m. Pacific time. You should go check that out. They're on their second session, so I'm sure you can go over to her channel and check the first one. I was like promoting my coworkers and their cool stuff, and that Jenny's cool. And otherwise, yeah, that's it. I've already promoted my other stuff.
All right. And I have one last shout out for me, and it's a little bit of a weird one. I have evidently achieved one of my lifelong dreams and become a miniature thanks to Last Sword.
Yes.
Thanks to Last Sword Miniatures. They have they've reached out and have kindly wanted to make me into a miniature, and they chose to make me into an elf captain with a bird doggy.
That's adorable.
Yeah. Last Sword is a miniature company that I'm a huge fan of and have purchased and printed and painted hundreds of their miniatures over the years. And so this is a big honor. I thank them a lot for it. I didn't expect this. So it's neat. So very, very soon, this is releasing next month. Actually, you'll be able to have a Param miniature. Actually, this is still a work in progress pick. They haven't quite finished it yet, but so that's a thing that's happening, and I thought was cool. And go check them out. The Last Sword miniatures. They have their own website. They have a Patreon. They do the 3D printed thing and the old school, cast it and sell it thing too. So go check them out. And yeah, if you want to get the Param miniature, it comes out next month. Another thing I do need to shout out to, of course, is the wonderful content that you can find at nodirectionpodcast.com, where you'll find blogs every day, as well as many, many podcasts talking about all sorts of things, including our upcoming show on Wednesday, the episode 0 and the inaugural episode of the Upshift podcast, the Essence 20 podcast, with me and Ryan rejoining and joining our forces again. I will again return to sidekick role, and we will explore the many worlds of Power Rangers, Transformers, and G.I. Joe in role-playing form, and nerd out about all we love about those properties and the brand new Essence 20 game. So you do not want to miss out on the first episode of that. We will be going through talking a little bit about the Power Rangers RPG and creating characters there, and I am super pumped to get into that. One other thing you can find when you're over at nodirectionpodcast.com is how to support this show and continue to support this network and this wonderful group of creators that we have here. You can do so by supporting us over on Patreon at patreon.com/nodirection. And if you want to, you can also find the link there to our Discord channel, which is the chillest place to talk about Pathfinder, Starfinder, Essence 20, and all the nerdity that we love and talk about every single day. You'll get to chat with the members of the show. You'll get to chat with myself, just pretty much all day, every day, and ask questions, as well as the rest of the fans. And if you are a patron of the network over on Patreon, you can join us for the Patrons Private Sanctum, the after show of No Direction, after every single episode of No Direction Prime, where you'll be able to join us for a chat and talk about whatever you want us to talk about. It's the after show directed by the fans and without any pre-planning going into it. It's become probably my favorite part of doing No Direction, is just to get to hang out and chat with the fans for a half an hour after every episode. So if you want to join us for that show that often goes well beyond the half an hour we block out for it, you can go ahead and do that. We'll be jumping over there very shortly, so you have a little bit of time. Just make sure that you join us on Patreon, support us there, and then link your Patreon account with your Discord account. Hop over to the Discord, and you'll find the channel that you can drop in and join us for the episode. All right, so we're going to be hopping over there soon. Anything else anybody wants to get to before we bounce out of here?
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Thursty, so much. Make sure you go check out Rotgrind. It is amazing. I've been geeking out about this ever since Thursty's been teasing me about it. I am super glad that you've joined us for this episode, Thursty. I am hyped. You're going to expect to see me quite often in your Twitch chat when you're doing the show.
Yay.
Awesome.
All right. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Vanessa Hoskins.
I'm Luis Loza.
I'm Thurston Hillman. Sometimes I get called Thurston Hillman in credits, but we fix that most of the time.
No.
And if you want to find the path, you need No Direction.